Hello, Algebra 2 students. Today we are going to do section 4.7 called Complete the Square. Previously, you've learned how to solve a quadratic equation by making an x-factor chart and then using ZPP to find your solutions for x. You've also learned how to solve a quadratic equation by using the square root method, where you made sure the constant was on the right side, then you divided by a, and then you took the square root of both sides, and you had your answers written in the form plus or minus something. There's a third method. Why do we use completing the square to solve quadratics? Well, this allows us to use the square root method to solve quadratics that cannot be written as ax squared equals c. And that's the only time you can use the square root method if you have ax squared equals c or a times x plus or minus something squared equals c. In order to solve quadratic equations by completing the square, you must follow the following steps. Right now, I just want to discuss the first three steps, and then when we do our example, I'll talk about steps 4 through 7. So, step 1, you make sure that your equation is in standard form. So, notice standard form. Again, this is how we started chapter 4. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Once it's in that form, in step 2, add or subtract the constant from each side. So like the square root method, the constant has to be on the opposite side of a and b. Step 3, make sure a equals 1. If it's not 1, you would divide both sides of the equation by the a value, right? Okay, let's look at our first example. Oh, it's crazy. Not a good way to start the example. All right. So example number 1, solve the following quadratics by completing the square. So first thing we should do is identify a and b because we're going to need a and b later. And that's if it's in standard form, and it is. So step 1 is already done for you because it's already in standard form. Step 2, move the constant to the opposite side. Well, the constant's a positive 4, so to move it, you want to do the opposite. Let's subtract. Don't write too large here as we're going to need a lot of space. Now, I want you to do something here. I want you to put a plus sign. And I want you to draw a square. Hint, complete the square. And then on the opposite side of the equal sign, simplify. So 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Draw or put a plus and draw another square. That square is going to be your magic number. That's going to help you do the remainder of the steps. So step number 2 is done for us, or now we've done step 2. Step 3, make sure a equals 1. Well, we already identified that a was 1 in our equation, so step 3 doesn't apply. Now, step number 4, find half of the b value. Well, if you look at b, half of 6 is 3. So we can show that here. So to find half of something, you would just divide by 2. So 6 divided by 2. But once you find half of it, you square it. So I'm going to put a squared out here. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So 9 is your magic number. And it goes here. And it goes there. And so step 4 is super duper crucial. And I'm going to put a star by here. An ugly looking star, but there, a star nonetheless. It says add. Notice I bold printed add. That's why I said put a plus sign. It's always going to be a plus sign and then draw your square. Add that result to both sides of the equation. Why is it add? Because when you square something, even if it's a negative number, it's positive. Step 5, factor the trinomial using the x-factor chart. But I'm going to show you that you don't have to. So I'm going to show you a shortcut so you don't have to make an x-factor chart for x squared plus 6x plus 9. You can if you want to, but it's always wise to take a shortcut. And here's the shortcut. Parentheses, parentheses, squared, equal, and negative 4 plus 9 is 5. Don't make a mistake over there. Okay, what goes in your parentheses? The first thing is just your variable. In this case, our variable is x. Second thing is going to be a plus sign. And the reason why it's a plus sign is because this is a plus sign. If this were a minus, then what would go in your parentheses would be a minus. And most students think that you should put a 9 there because 9 was our magic number. But 9 doesn't go there. Half of the b value goes there. So 3 goes here. And here's why. 3 to the second power is 9. And that's where you would get the 9 if you were to multiply using FOIL. If you were to take x plus 3 times x plus 3, you would get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay, now the last two steps are easy because you've done it in another section. So now you can solve using square roots. So complete the squares is like a combination of its own thing and then the square root method. So take the square root of both sides. Okay, and the square root of the left side is just x plus 3. Oops, you don't need parentheses because you're just taking the square root. So, okay. And equal to, always put your plus or minus. Square root of 5, you can't break down any further. It's just 1 times 5. And so last step, so just step 7, you're just solving. And remember, you shouldn't put it behind the square root of 5. Always put it in front so that your plus or minus is in the middle. There we go. And those are your two answers. So one of your answers is -3 plus the square root of 5, and the other one is -3 minus the square root of 5. That wasn't too bad, I hope. So as long as you follow the steps, you're going to do fine. Okay, let's look at example number 2. So I'm looking up above at my steps. Step 1, is it in standard form? It is because the right side is equal to 0. Let's identify A and B. Actually, we don't want to identify B right now. So maybe we only identified A and B there because A was equal to 1. So I'm not going to identify any of these yet until we are in step number 3. So step 2, add or subtract the constant. So let's add 14 to both sides. Okay, step 3, make sure A is equal to 1. It's not. Because A is 2, we want to divide everything by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. And so you have n squared minus 2n plus, because you're completing the square, draw a square. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and plus another square. So you don't draw out the square until A is equal to 1. And that's why I didn't identify A in that particular problem. I just did it in the first one just to show you. All right. Now we need to fill in the box. So we need to find our magic number. So we take that middle value. Now we know that we can do it. We can write it here. So A is 1, B is -2. Okay, so you take half of the middle number and the middle number -2. So take -2 divided by 2. I put it in parentheses because you're squaring it. Anything that you square is always going to be positive. So -2 divided by 2 is -1. -1 squared is a positive 1. And so that's your magic number. Right? And now we are going to factor the left side and simplify the right side. So factoring the left side, draw your parentheses. Simplifying the right side, 7 plus 1 is easy. It's 8. And here are variables n. So let's use n instead of x. The original equation had a minus in the middle. And then in this case, we're going to put 1 there because it's half the middle number. So we put 1. There you go. And it's always going to be half the middle number. And then you can solve by taking the square root of each side. All right, the square root of the left side is just n minus 1. Square root of the right side is plus or minus square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Notice I instantly make a habit of breaking down a number that I know is a composite number and not a prime number. So it's just a habit to do. You automatically do it. So we have n minus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 4 is 2. That you cannot break down any further. Now add 1 to both sides. Put it in front. n equals 1 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2. And you just leave it like that. Okay, let's do our last example. So this one is not written in standard form. So you're going to have to um, go ahead and you can go ahead and multiply, like use the distributive property, which is what most students would want to do. Um, so let's just do that. So you're going to do 6x times x, which is 6x squared. And then 6x times negative 8 is negative 48x equals 12. Okay. Now you can go, if you want it in standard form, like I suggested, just this is kind of counterproductive, I guess, but it's okay for this particular problem. So 6x squared minus 48x minus 12 equals 0. So all of that is step 1. Okay, step number 2, move the constant to the other side. So honestly, we didn't have to do it because now we're just getting back to where we started. But add 12 to both sides. Because the constant was already on the right side, we could have just left it there. That's okay. Okay, notice a is 6 and not 1, so you want to divide everything by 6. And so that's x squared minus 8x plus some magic number equals 12 divided by 6, which is 2, plus a magic number. Most people just find the magic number in their head, and that's fine if you know what to do. So remember, the magic number is always the middle coefficient. Don't worry about the variable, just the coefficient. So the middle coefficient is negative 8 divided by 2, and then square it, and that'll give you the magic number. So that's negative 4. Notice it's negative 4 in parentheses squared, so it becomes positive. So it's positive 16. So your magic number is 16. Right? In the left side, you're going to factor as x minus some number squared equals 2 plus 16. And the reason why it's minus again is because the middle term is negative. And it's always going to be, the number is always going to be the square root of whatever this number is. And the square root of 16 is 4. So you're going to put a 4 here. And then take the square root of both sides. You have x minus 4 on the left equals plus or minus root 9 times root 2. Notice I did not use root 6 and root 3 because neither of those are perfect squares. Add 4 to both sides. X equals 4 plus or minus 3, because the square root of 9 is 3, times root 2. And that's 3 examples that you have with completing the square. Your homework tonight, you are going to do a few as well. Let's see. You are going to do 4 complete the squares, and you're going to do 1 like the last 2 examples that we're going to do today. So the last 2 examples, write a quadratic function in vertex form. Now, I think your note should be okay. Mine is not okay, but this should be a y. Okay. So remember, a function in vertex form is always y equals, anytime you see the word vertex, you automatically know there's going to be h and k involved. So y equals a, because a is in front of everything, times x minus h quantity squared plus k. Then identify the vertex. So this is all we're going to do is we're going to use completing the square. So we're going to use our 7 steps. Notice the right side is in standard form. The left side does not have a 0, but that's okay. We have a y, so whatever, it's okay. Step number 2, you want to move the constant to the other side. So we have y minus 95. I put the y first because notice our equation is always going to be y equals, actually, yeah, let's go ahead. Equals, I actually need to erase something. Right. We are going to put a plus because you're always squaring and draw your square. equals x squared minus 18x plus another squared plus another square, sorry. Okay, now we're going to find the magic number. We're going to find the magic number of the right side because the right side's going to have three terms. You have x squared minus 18x. It's always going to be half of the b value. And remember, b in this case is negative 18. So I'm going to do out here to the side half of negative 18. So that'd be negative 18 divided by 2. And then squaring it. So that's negative 9 squared. That gives you 81. So 81, 81. Simplify the left. So y minus, let's see, negative 95 plus 81 is negative 14. And we're going to factor the right side. Variable minus sign since b is negative. And the square root of 81 is 9. Pretty easy. And then all we have to do is move the negative 14 to the other side, and then it'll be in vertex form. So add 14. Please, please do not do this. You do not add a number inside something that's in parentheses. So that 14 should be added to the outside. Right. So that would be going right here. So here's our equation. Y equals x minus 9 quantity squared plus 14. And now let's identify our vertex. So that's step 1, or that's part 1. Hopefully you remember, and if you don't, then maybe this will bring back memories. So our vertex is h comma k. Hopefully you know, keep the k for keep, but h is opposite. So the opposite of negative 9 is positive 9, but keep k. And that's your vertex. Let's do one more. Okay. The next one, follow the same steps. So subtract 3. Y minus 3 plus squared equals x squared plus 6x plus draw another square. And let's find what number should go in the square. So 6 divided by 2, take that and square it. So that's 3 squared, which equals 9. Okay, negative 3 plus 6, or I'm sorry, negative 3 plus 9 is 6. X is our variable, plus is our sign because it's plus 6x, and the square root of 9 is 3. It really isn't that hard. I mean, numbers are really, really nice here too. And now our last step is to subtract 6 on both sides. The more you do something, the better you become at it in anything you do. Part 1, done. Vertex, opposite of positive 3 is negative 3, but keep k. Just got to get it through your head. You got to keep k, but make h opposite. And those are your notes for today. Have a great day, Algebra 2 students.